Breaking news from the Middle East that reveals the disturbing manipulation happening under the fragile Gaza ceasefire. Israel just confirmed that 3 bodies Hamas handed over to the Red Cross this week don't belong to any of the hostages. This isn't just a tragic mistake, it's part of a calculated pattern of deception that's undermining the entire U.S.-brokered peace deal. The remains were transferred late Friday to Israel, where DNA testing by forensic authorities determined they were not those of any known hostages. Think about what that means. Hamas staged an elaborate handover with the Red Cross, made it look official, made it look like they were complying with the ceasefire agreement, and then delivered bodies of people who aren't even hostages. This is psychological warfare against grieving families. And this isn't the first time. Earlier this week, Hamas returned partial remains they claimed belonged to a hostage, but Israeli forensic investigation revealed it was body parts of Ofir Tzarfati, a 27-year-old Israeli student whose remains the IDF had already recovered back in December 2023. Hamas literally gave back pieces of someone Israel already had. In February, Hamas handed over a body claiming it belonged to Shiri Bibas, a 32-year-old mother, in an apparent attempt to conceal the brutal murder of her and her 2 young children, 10-month-old Kfir and 4-year-old Ariel. Military drone footage even showed Hamas operatives staging the discovery of remains before handing them over to the Red Cross. They're performing theater, creating fake rescue operations for the cameras while families wait in agony for real answers about their loved ones. Since the ceasefire took effect on October 10th, Palestinian militants have released the remains of 17 hostages held in Gaza for the past 2 years. But the process of returning the last 11 remaining hostages is progressing painfully slowly, with militants releasing just 1 or 2 bodies every few days. The ceasefire agreement required Hamas to return all 48 living and deceased hostages within 72 hours. We're now 3 weeks in, and they're deliberately dragging it out. Senior Hamas official Musa Abu Marzouk claimed returning the bodies could take months. Israeli officials believe Hamas is deliberately stalling, using the hostages' remains as bargaining chips while attempting to reassert control in Gaza and delay demilitarization efforts. This is about buying time to rearm and rebuild their terrorist infrastructure. Among those still held are American citizens. Itai Chen and Omer Nutra, both Americans, were murdered and kidnapped by Hamas on October 7, 2023. For over 750 days, their bodies have been held in Gaza. 2 American families waiting for their sons to come home while Hamas plays these sick games with unidentified remains. Now here's where President Trump comes in, and his response has been disappointingly weak. The fragile truce faced its biggest challenge this week when Israel carried out strikes across Gaza that killed more than 100 people, following the killing of an Israeli soldier in Rafah and the incomplete return of hostages. Trump issued a 48-hour deadline that Hamas completely ignored. And what was the consequence? Nothing meaningful. Trump talks tough about being a deal-maker, about commanding respect from adversaries, but Hamas is openly defying the U.S.-brokered ceasefire he championed, and his response has been tepid at best. Where's the leverage? Where's the pressure? Trump praised Putin and Xi as tough, smart leaders who you can't toy with, yet he's being toyed with by Hamas right now. This is the same Trump who threatened to deploy National Guard troops to Portland over peaceful protests. The same Trump who's covering up the Epstein files, revealing a billion-dollar sex trafficking operation. But when a terrorist organization violates a ceasefire agreement, disrespects American families, and manipulates the remains of murdered hostages, suddenly he's cautious. The contrast is staggering. Israel has returned 225 Palestinian bodies to Gaza since the ceasefire began. Only 75 have been identified by families. Israel is holding up its end of the agreement. Hamas is not. Yet Trump seems more focused on praising authoritarian leaders abroad than holding terrorists accountable for violating deals he brokered. Hamas, in its statement, said its teams were ready to continue working on, quote, extracting the bodies, but demanded the Red Cross provide equipment and teams necessary to recover all bodies simultaneously. They're making excuses, claiming Israeli military presence in some areas makes recovery difficult. But then how did they manage to stage elaborate fake recoveries for the cameras? How did they have time to manipulate remains but not identify them correctly? Released hostage Eitan Horn, who spent 738 days in Hamas captivity and returned just 2 weeks ago, spoke at a rally in Tel Aviv. He said he cannot rebuild his sense of security or begin healing while 11 bodies remain in Gaza, while families cannot start their journey of recovery. This is the human cost of Hamas's manipulation. The psychological torture extends beyond captivity. And let's be clear about what Hamas is doing strategically. Multiple nations have shown interest in taking part in a peacekeeping force, but called for a clear UN mandate before committing troops. The 20-point U.S. peace plan includes formation of an international stabilization force, but that can't move forward while Hamas violates the current ceasefire. Every day they delay, every fake body they hand over, every staged recovery they perform, it's buying them time to regroup while undermining international confidence in any long-term peace agreement. This is terrorism beyond the initial attacks. This is weaponizing grief. Hamas knows every fake handover, every misidentified body, every delay causes renewed trauma for families. They're counting on it. They're using the pain of grieving families as a strategic tool to extract concessions and buy time. President Trump needs to understand something. Real toughness isn't threatening peaceful protests in American cities. Real toughness is holding terrorists accountable when they violate agreements. Real strength isn't praising dictators, it's defending American citizens and allies when they're being manipulated by terrorist organizations. The families of Itai Chen and Omer Mutra deserve better. The Israeli families waiting for their loved ones deserve better. And the international community deserves a U.S. president who backs up his rhetoric with action when terrorists openly defy ceasefire agreements he helped broker. Hamas is testing Trump, seeing how far they can push, how much they can manipulate. And so far, Trump's failing the test. Hit subscribe and demand real accountability, not just tough talk, but actual consequences for terrorist organizations that weaponize the dead.